Don't just shove your bridle in your horse's mouth. A lot of people don't really think about being methodical and taking their time when bridling up their horse. This horse is a rescue horse. He came from a private rescue. His name is Roanoke, and we've been working with him, and he's actually just recently got started under saddle. But one of the things that I like to make sure is from the very beginning, I like my horses to accept and take the bit well. So I'm going to show you kind of in 3 parts what I look for and what I do in order to teach my horse how to take the bridle every time. So one of the first things I like to do is make sure that my horse knows how to lower their head, and they should be doing it without resistance. And so there's a couple of ways that I teach my pony how to lower their head. Underneath the clip here, I want to be able to add some pressure and they lower there. I also want to, here buddy, I also want to be able to put pressure on the pole and my horse lowers their head for me there. If I have a horse who's not lowering their head for me, then what I'll do is I'll just stick with it, right? It might even be that I start with some horses, you just put your hand up by their face and their head's going up high. I might just start there, where I put my hand on them and I rest it on there, and they might be pulling away or tossing that head, but I stay with them until they relax. And maybe they're not even lowering their head, but they're just not reacting. Then I'll take the pressure away. So start wherever your horse is, A lot of people think that it takes, a lot of time to teach your horse to lower your head. But if you're consistent, you start where they are and you release the pressure when they're quiet, they'll begin to learn that when they lower, that's what gets them out of the pressure versus driving pressure at your horse's face. Another thing that I see is horses will root. They'll be kind of impolite. And I always want my horses to be ladies and gentlemen. I don't want them to be pushy and shovey, okay? So if I put my hand up and say he lowers, he's got to stay lowered politely without rooting. In fact, he sometimes will kind of root or shake to get away, but I'll stay with him until he's quiet and he's proven that he's a gentleman. Then I'll take the pressure away, all right? So again, the first step is I gotta have a horse who will lower their head for me and isn't gonna be resistant, right? And so before I would ever think about putting a bridle in a horse's mouth, I should be able to get my pony to put their nose essentially into the dirt, right? Like that's how quiet I want my pony to be with their head. What a pony. Notice how he's holding it there. He didn't always start out this way. In fact, sometimes I'd lower his head and then he'd pop back up. I'd have an imaginary line in my head of where I wanted that head to be below. Now this horse ties in pretty high at the shoulder. He's got a kind of old gnarly scar here. It's pretty cool looking actually, but he ties in pretty high at the shoulder. His natural head carriage, he looks like a giraffe, right? That head is just up there. And so when I first started, I was like, okay, I just want your head to come here, right? When your head came here, anytime it went above there, I'd say up, head back down. Right? Up, head back down, up, head back down, until he's like, up. Anytime I go above here, he's gonna bug me, so I might as well just stay here, right? Then it's like, okay, let's get here. Then let's get to like a level top line, right? Let's stay at the level top line, okay? Then let's get that nose to the chest. If it comes above there, back down. Let's get that nose down to the knees. If it comes above there, right there, he rose a little bit, they go back down, right? But you set expectations gradually to teach your horse where it's okay to raise their head and not. And over time, if you're patient and you work on it step by step, you'll develop a horse who just kind of lowers that head for you on cue, and they're more than happy to keep it down there for you. He doesn't look really happy about it, but he's doing it. There you go, good boy, what a pony.
You're not too old, you're not too broken. You just need the right support. Even before the spook, your body was already bracing. You didn't want to freeze, but it happened anyway. And your horse, well, they felt every ounce of it. The truth is, fear doesn't fade with time. It fades with trust. And trust, that comes with connection. It's hard to connect when fear takes the reins. And that's why we created Unbreakable Bond Premium, to help you rebuild trust step by step. You'll get our full 10-course training roadmap, where we take you from some of the basics like groundwork and desensitizing, all the way to some of the more advanced stuff like obstacle work and cantering for confidence. Plus mini courses, live group coaching, and a private community of riders who care deeply about doing it right for their horses and themselves. The piece you've been looking for, it's closer than you think. Start your 7-day free trial and build the bond that your horse actually wants.
Okay, so now the second step that I like to do is I like to introduce the bridle to them. And what that kind of looks like is at first, and here's a key here, when I am first teaching a horse to bridle, like probably the first 100 times I bridle that horse, easily the first 100 rides, a lot of people, you would see them, they'd go to take off the halter and lead. No, not at all, not me. I am actually leaving the halter and lead on. Now I'll tell you why. I want to be able to toss this gently over his neck. You see that head going up? As that head goes up, I'm going to now have control to keep his nose tipped in towards me. I want to keep that nose tipped in towards me all the way. And I can use my hand to say, hey, keep that head low, right? Notice I didn't continue putting the reins over his neck until what? Until he lowered that head. Now these annoying reins, they go away. Does that make sense? Every step of the way, I've got clarity and expectations of how I want my horse to work with me going forward, okay? So I'm gonna show you that again. Even coming off, if you were to throw that head up, I'd stop, I'd lower. Once he's relaxed, then I'd take those reins off, okay? So now I'm gonna hold, I'm gonna bring my reins over. If he goes up, I'll go with him, but then I'll lower his head back down. Now I'll set my reins down, okay? So I want to introduce the bridle to him, and then same thing with the crown of the bridle. I want to take the crown of the bridle and I'm going to pass it to my offhand, okay? And I just lay it on my pony's face, right? Look at the bit's like just laying on his nose, head's high. What am I going to do? Lower that head. Good boy. When he lowers that head and he relaxes, I'll take it away. So this is like the bridle introduction process, right? I want to be able to lay the bridle on him. See how that head's going up high? I say it stays with you, but hey, when you lower that head, you stay with me for a few moments. Good. Then the bridle goes away. All right, we'll go at it again. I'll lay it on there. A lot of repetition is what makes good, quiet ponies who have good understanding of what we're asking of them. I'm gonna stay with them here. Lower, good, lower. Stay with me for a little bit. Good, I'll take it away. Lower that head back down, good. I'm gonna pass it back to my offhand again. So I just want, there we go, what a pony. I just wanna see improvement here, okay? Good. But there's no way that if I can't just set this on his face, my horse's head is going all up, there's no way I'm gonna try and put the bridle in my horse's mouth. I really want to make sure that they accept the bridle, right? That I've introduced it to them and they've accepted this aid and they're okay with it and they're comfortable. That's really good right there. I'll take it away. So now the last step of teaching my horse to take the bridle is I'm gonna actually put the bit in his mouth, all right? So remember we talked about laying it over his face, making sure he accepted that, okay? Then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab my actual bit and I'm going to, see how he's rooting his nose? I'm not gonna do anything until he quits rooting that nose. And I've got, let me see here, I've got kind of got a mess here with my reins. Hold on, there we go, okay. So I'm gonna hold this here at the crown of the bridle, hands there. His nose should be tipped in towards me. If he's rooting that nose, I'm just staying with him until he relaxes. I want him to know that rooting that nose, being impolite, that doesn't get him out of the pressure, okay? I also have my halter underneath to help keep him with me, right? Good boy. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the actual bit right up to his lips. And this is where people get excited. He popped his mouth open, they wanna put the bit in. And I'm not gonna do that, okay? I'm just gonna hold it there until he relaxes. I want him to be okay with just that bit laying up against his teeth quietly. And then once he quiets down, there, then I'll slide it in there. Once I slide that in, I want to take my crown piece, I want to tuck the off ear forward and slide the crown over. Tuck the inner ear forward and slide the crown over. Bridle looks like I need to slide up a little bit for him. Yeah. But the idea here is you see how quietly I work with him here in order to make him comfortable with accepting the bridle. We do it nice and slow. So I'm gonna gather up again here, and now I'm gonna take the bridle off and we're gonna put the bit in his mouth a couple times. I'm gonna be just as methodical when I take the bridle off as I am with putting it on. So I gather up my reins. Now as I slip the crown of the bridle and the rein over his ears, okay, I'm gonna maintain a little bit of upward pressure. I don't wanna just drop the bit out of his mouth. I want him to wait for me to drop it off. So I'm gonna tip those ears forward. I'm gonna gently pull and I'm gonna hold upward pressure here. Good boy, he's lowering his head for me. Now I'll slide the bit down the front of the crown of the bridle down the front of his face to lower that out of his mouth so it doesn't clink on his mouth and bang on his teeth, okay? So we're gonna do that one more time here, okay? So I'm gonna take my reins, slide it over the pole. I'm gonna take the crown, set the bridle on his face. What a gentleman. I'm gonna lower the bit down by his lips. I'm gonna wait for him to be quiet there. Now I'll slide it in. I'm gonna tip the off ear under the crown, the close ear under the crown. What a pony. And so by setting that expectation every single time that he should do it softly, quietly, and relaxed, eventually I'll develop a horse who's a gentleman, who just lowers his head down, takes that bit, and is always polite with it.